So for this project, I'm using this printout that I got off of my Cricut program. And it was so large I had to, well, I wanted it this size. I had to print it out on two papers and tape it together. And we're going to try to simulate those petals on that flower. Look, they look like roses to me. I guess they could be something else. And we're going to be using 3 bud vases, but I'm just going to go through the first bud vase with you so as not to bore you. And what we're going to be doing is going around the perimeter. Now, if you want small, you do it that way. If you want larger pieces, you would angle it that way. And I'm using these sea bell nippers, and I'm not getting paid to talk about them, but I really love them. And they are expensive, but I think they're worth it. That little teal rubber around past the blade holds onto the piece of glass so it doesn't fly across the room, and you can just drop it into the box. You still need to wear eye protection with them, but I really love them. And so we're just trying to shape the petals, and when I show you the picture again, okay, here you go. So it's going to be flat at the bottom and jagged, kind of jagged, either rounded at the top or dip in at the top. And when you look at the picture, you'll see how the petals are all different. And they don't have to be perfect. They're going to look jagged. After they've been tumbled and after they've been painted, you won't even notice. They'll look perfect as petals for the flowers. And like I said, we want the bottom flat and the top either rounded or dipped in. And I'm just going to kind of go slow through this. For those of you who know how to cut these kind of petals, just fast forward through it. For those of you who are learning and want to watch me do it slowly, quite a few people enjoyed it when I went slow on the other. Then just go ahead and watch it, and I'll try to play some music or something. But here you go. See, so all of those petals are different. Some dip out, some dip in, some are just jagged along the edges. And I'm just trying to make a variety of petals out of all 3 of these bud vases. And I end up making, I think, 4 roses out of it. 3 I use on the project, and 1 is like a practice rose. And for this, you're going to need a variety of sizes. You're going to want larger ones to go around the outer perimeter, and you're going to want smaller pieces as you go in toward the center. So I'm going to be, like I said, cutting up a variety of large and small pieces, and probably painting a whole bunch of extras just in case, because you never know how many you're gonna need. So like I said, if you want to watch it, listen to the music and watch it, and if you don't want to, just fast forward through this part. So the bottom part that's going to sit on your glass or your canvas is flat, and the top part is kind of jagged and either rounded or dips in the middle, just different shapes on the top. So I think you're kind of getting the picture. I actually go through 3 bud vases because in the end I end up making 3 roses and then practice rows, because you really need a lot to continue to go around and around the perimeter. So anyway, I'm just going to fast forward through this part. And this is what the glass looks like after I finished the first vase. And remember, I ended up doing 3 vases. And it looks all jagged and kind of funny, but it really does work out. So next, this is how I constructed my very first rows, and this is just to give you an idea of how the petals are going to sit, and they're actually going to be angled down a little bit more than this, but this just kind of gives you an idea of how it's going to work. And those smaller pieces, you need smaller pieces to go in the very center, and of course the larger pieces to go on the outside. And I always do my roses from the outside in. Sometimes I almost think you might be better off doing the inside out. So anyway, now I'm ready to tumble the glass. So I have my 3 vases all cut up, and this is the Vevor tumbler. This is the one that I keep inside, and I do not ever put grit in this one. I just use water. So I go ahead and I dump the glass in. I put a little squirt of the Dawn dish soap in it, and that will clean the glass while it's tumbling. I put the top back on and seal it real good, and then I stick it on the tumbler. So this is the Vevor tumbler, and like I said, this is the one I keep inside. I have several rock tumblers or glass tumblers outside that I use with grit. But I've really just been using this one quite a bit inside now. And I put it on, so this one has 4 different speeds, and the number to the left that says 1, that's a number of days, and I believe it goes up to 8 days. But I have it inside just to get the sharp edges off the glass, so I only run it for 1 hour. So I just set my own timer for 1 hour and I take it off, and then I dump it into a colander in the sink. Then I rinse it off just with plain water. And honestly, this is such a simple thing to do, and then the edges are no longer sharp. So I find the thinner the glass is, you might have to do it for 1.5 hours to 2 hours. The chunkier glass takes just about 1 hour. And like I said, you can rub your fingers across it. The edges aren't sharp anymore, and it's just so simple to do. This 12.5 by 12.5 inch frame and took all the backing and the paper and the clips out of the back, and I've now decided that I'm going to try to keep the glass in the frame by only using painter's tape and not using the glue anymore, and I will let you know how that works. I'm just being real conscientious about how secure I'm putting that painter's tape down, and I'm making sure it's sealed really well in the corners. And then I took my paper and I taped it to the back of the project. And next I took my Elmer's glue and I went ahead and I traced around the watering can. I took a 4mm rhinestone chain and went over all of the Elmer glue lines right on top of it. And you don't need to worry about the Elmer's glue because, and this is the clear Elmer's glue, once it dries perfectly clear, and when you put resin over it, you will not see any stray marks from the Elmer's glue. You just can't use the regular Elmer's glue, you have to use the clear Elmer's glue. Next I take the ASHLAND decorative filler and I actually spray paint it silver. It already has a silver reflective quality, but I wanted it more silver. I was thinking of a watering can, a metal watering can, and that's why I did that. So after it dried, I went ahead and I filled in the project. Now the rhinestone chains are all the way dry now. That's really important because if you try to put the glass on while the rhinestone chains are still wet and move, it's really hard to, you have to keep on pushing them back into place. So it's in your best interest to let the rhinestone chains dry overnight and then put the glass in. And then I did take the Clear Elmer's glue and go over all of the ASHLAND decorative filler just to keep it in place, because I knew this project was going to take several days to complete and I didn't want any of the glass falling out of there. Next, I took all of my tumbled shaped glass that I had made for the petals and I spread it out on a piece of paper out in the garage, and I sprayed it with the TAMIYA red translucent spray paint. And I gave it one good coat, back and forth, and let it dry for about a half hour, flipped it over the other way, and gave the other side a good coat. Now the TAMIYA, you can go back and forth over multiple times without any problems. The Krylon, if you do that, it will create bubbles. You have to give it lighter coats. So the TAMIYA, I love the TAMIYA translucent spray paints. Spray paint does not run, it does not have to be sealed, it does not fade. So now I'm ready to put the petals on. And the petals I'm going to be attaching with UV resin. I'm using Let's Resin, UV resin, and I'm using the Let's Resin UV light. This is a top and bottom light. They're actually matching lights. They're actually two lights, but when you attach them together, there's a little shelf that slides in and out and you can put projects on it. But I'm just going to be using the top of this for this project. Light can be set for 2, 3, and 5 minutes. So I'm hoping you can see what I'm doing, because it's kind of hard to do because I have to hold on to it. So I'm taking the UV resin and I'm just making a little line with it. And then I'm taking my first petal, which is going to be one of the outer petals, so it's a larger petal, and I'm setting it in it at an angle. And then I'm taking my UV light and I'm putting it on top of it. And you have to hold the petal at an angle until it starts to set. And it usually takes maybe about 30 seconds, and you can let go of it and it'll stand up on its own. And it's at an angle. You would never be able to get it to set like that with regular resin. So, and then you leave the UV light on it for a minute or so. And I don't totally cure it like that. I leave it for about a minute and a half, and then I go on to the next, because each time I put another petal on, I'm reapplying the UV light, so it will eventually get a full, who knows, 5-10 minutes, because I put so many petals on there. So that was the first petal, and you could kind of see from the side how it's really held at an angle. And then I just keep on going around the perimeter the same way I did the first one. And again, I think I'm going to kind of do this slow and let you guys watch. And if you don't want to watch, you can fast forward through it. So you can see I put some UV resin on there. And here I am again putting it in an angle and then putting the UV light on top while I keep my hand there until it sets a little bit so that it'll hold up completely on its own. And then after, say, 30 seconds, I can let go of it. And then I leave the light on again for about a minute or a little bit less. And then next I put the third petal on, some UV resin, third petal on, hold it there while I apply the UV light. Again, leave it for 30 seconds. And then the fourth one, the same deal. This one I end up putting a little bit of the resin on the bottom of the petal. Sometimes that's the way to do it. You can actually put some on the back of one petal and on the front of the other to attach. And this is what it looks like from the side. Isn't that cool how it's being held like that? And that UV resin on the bottom, you will not see that at all once you pour the regular resin on it. And there it is, a side view, the sides of the flowers. And then here goes the fifth petal, and now I'm going to kind of speed it up a little bit so that You don't get bored with it. But it's pretty much the same thing. You just keep on adding the petals till you make a complete circle with it, and then you start filling in the very center of it. So there's the final part of the circle, and you can end up adding more underneath to make it a bigger flower too. And here I am starting with filling in the center. Keep on going around, adding smaller and smaller petals, you know, the rounded petals and the UV resin until you're done. Fast forward if you don't want to watch this.
Let's take it slow. Where you go, I go too. And if you hit the bottom, I'm going down with you. Let's take it slow. Who cares where we gotta be? You know you'll have a good time wherever you're with me. Let's take it. Ask me how we got here, 'cause you don't know how. You say we're taking on water, yeah, we're sinking now. You're looking all concerned, like we're gonna drown. But we both know how to swim, no worries, let's float for now. Let's take it slow. Where you go, I go too. And if you hit the bottom, I'm going down with you. Let's take it slow. Who cares where we gotta be? You know you'll have a good time wherever you're with me. Let's take it. I drag you out your mind, and there are days I hate you, but baby, you're still mine. And now we have the best times, no matter what we do. And even when we don't, there's nobody I'd rather choose. Let's take it slow. Where you go, I go too. And if you hit the bottom, I'm going down with you. Let's take it. Slow, where you go, I go too. And if you hit the bottom, I'm going down with you. Let's take it slow. Who cares where we gotta be? You know you'll have a good time wherever you're with me.
So next I decide I need some leaves for the roses. And I just cut around the perimeter of the bowl like I did in my bunny rabbit video. And I get pieces and I make them pointy on one end, and then you can either square it off at the bottom of the other end like that, or you can cut it into a point. For this project, I think I ended up cutting a bunch of different shapes just because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to use. And I did have some pieces left over from the other project that I did that I end up using. And I just kind of cut them how I think a leaf might look. And I'll go through this a little bit faster. And so again, around the perimeter like that. And then cut that in half, and then cut a bunch of leaves out of it. And this is really nice, thick, dark colored glass. This is green all the way through. This is the deeper the color, the prettier it looks when you're doing the glass on glass or even on canvas, because when you pour resin on it, it becomes more translucent. So if you use a real light color, it doesn't stand out as much. So the deeper, darker colors of the glass and the thicker the glass too, the less translucent it is. So I do end up taking this glass and putting them in my tumbler for 1 hour, because there are some sharp edges and very pointy ends on this. And then next, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was trying to decide, I was trying to see if I could add more flowers to it or exactly what I could do, because my original plan was to make it look kind of like the picture behind it. But I just didn't like anything I put on there, and I'm just going through this real fast just to show you that, sometimes you have a plan and it doesn't always work out that way. So I just messed with it for a while, and then I decided just to leave the roses with the leaves. Well, then I started to second guess myself, and I thought, oh, maybe I should do a black outline on it instead of what I had on there, or just add the black. And then I decided, no, I was going to add the pink rhinestone chain. And I actually ended up using the back side of the pink rhinestone chain, which is like a rose gold, I guess they would call it, and it's real pretty. And I didn't take any of the outline off, but I ended up having to take some of the stones off, because remember I had put Elmer's glue on top of them, and that was a big pain in the butt. But I just felt like it needed to stand out more, and it didn't. So after I was done adding the pink rhinestone chain, I decided I didn't like the real silvery crushed glass, and what I ended up adding was some more of the crushed glass that I had painted with the Artist Loft Iridescent medium, and I thought that looked prettier being a little bit lighter. And then I started messing around with finishing touches. The green glass at the very bottom is actually Dollar Tree glass, and I added some little flowers that I had picked up at Temu, and on the right bottom I had a little snail brooch that I put down there, and then I just kind of messed around with the green leaves and putting a little green glass underneath the flowers to kind of fill in here and there. And honestly, I messed around with those green leaves for probably about a half an hour trying to figure out which way I thought they looked best. So next I decided I wanted to highlight the edges or the tips of the roses with some glitter. And what I used was UV resin mixed with 3 different glitters: red, pink, and silver. And I put it in that little bowl and then mixed it up. And you want it kind of thick because you don't want it running down the sides. And I just worked in one area at a time and used a little paintbrush and painted it just on the top edges of the rose. And then I would put, and this is with the UV resin, and then I would put the UV light on it, because I didn't want to do all of it and then risk it dripping down. The only place that I really wanted to get a bunch of it was in the very center. So I wanted it just on the top of the tips of the roses and then in the very center of the roses. Otherwise, I didn't really want it dripping down the petals at all. And then I took some of the colored red UV resin and put it down into the areas of the flower that you could see the glass, and put the UV light on it. I didn't want the glass showing through. Of course, you don't have to use pink or red UV resin. You can just mix some UV resin with the little mica powder. You just can't have it opaque. You have to leave it a little bit translucent so that the UV light can penetrate it and set it. And I think that turned out so pretty. So now it's pretty much ready for the resin. The resin I'm using for this project is Art Resin. Art Resin is a 1-to-1 ratio resin that you mix slowly in a cup for 3 minutes, scraping the sides, scraping the bottom. A lot of times if there seems to be a lot of bubbles in it, the slower you mix it, the less bubbles you'll get. But if there is a lot of bubbles, I will set it aside and let it sit there for a few minutes, up to 15 minutes, because it does have a long work time. It says it has a 45-minute work time, but I think it's a little bit longer. So it gives it time for the bubbles to dissipate. But the art resin bubbles are really easy to get rid of with your little torch or heat gun. So when I first start pouring the resin, I drizzle it over the crushed glass first, and the crushed glass, and then over the leaves, and over the glass down at the bottom also. And then I spread it up and around on the glass itself, pushing it into the corners and along the edges. And then I actually dip my fingers in the resin and do the petals of the flower. I just do not want to pour resin down in there and make it flood the entire area, so I'm just putting it on my finger and rubbing it against the tops of the petals and along the sides of the petals, and a little bit of resin on the petals. Because I don't want, like I said, I don't want to flood, because it will just sit right in there. And then I finish spreading it out on the rest of the project. Next, I add some little white flowers and some red beads, which the red beads I end up taking off after. And then I have this little snail that I had gotten on Temu. It's actually a snail brooch. And I remove the pin on the back and then set it in the on the side, and then I'm trying to figure out something else that I can put up on the top, and I end up putting that little bee up there. So I do go over the resin with my little kitchen torch to get rid of the bubbles, and after I'm done with the project, I do come back every 15 minutes for about 3 times to check for glass placement, to check to see if there's more bubbles, and to hit it again with the torch to check for sediment, and I'll usually pull anything out that I see with a little toothpick. And this particular resin, like I said, has a 45-minute work time. It needs to sit on a flat level surface overnight at temperatures between 75 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. All resins are different. You need to read the directions for the resin that you are using. It's in your best interest to cover your project with a dust cover. Hey everyone. So I finished my project, and I love the way the roses came out. The only thing I would do different is I would do something to make this stand out a little more, maybe a darker rhinestone chain. You could do this on canvas, painted, and do the roses on top. And I absolutely love the way the roses turned out, but I would be lying to you if I told you that was the plan, because this is the original clip art I had under it, and I really was planning on putting more flowers on it, but one of the roses ended up a little bigger than I wanted it, and then I added even more on underneath to put more petals. So that's why I just ended up adding another rose there. And you did see where I tried to add other elements, and I didn't like it. So anyway, I think I like the way it turned out. I think it's super, super pretty. And, this is all held up with the UV resin, which is so cool. And for those of you who don't know about UV resin or have never used UV resin, the main difference between UV resin and epoxy resin is epoxy resin, which is used on the top of this, the Let's Resin is that it's a 2-part resin, that the curing process occurs when the resin and the hardener are mixed together. That's what starts the curing process. With UV resin, the curing process, it's only 1 part, it's smaller quantities, it's more expensive, it's used for smaller items like jewelry, and the curing process occurs when it's exposed to UV light. And that's why it's in the dark bottle like that, because you don't want it, even the sunlight will cause it to cure. So anyway, it is super, super cool for flower petals, and I'm going to be experimenting more with them over the next month, doing some more stuff. I have been doing the flower petals that hold up upright with UV resin, but the first ones that I ever made were actually with hot glue. But before that, I just wanted to show you this. So this is, and the reason I'm showing you this again is because someone on the Facebook page had held it like this, and she said the whole thing fell down. But it does have magnets on there, and I think I failed to show you on my last video. So these kind of turn, and you can't see the magnet, and when you turn it like that, and I think they still hold even when it is like that, yeah. But if you want the full capabilities of the magnet for holding power, you should have the little elements exposed, the magnet itself, and then that'll hold it. And the cool thing about this Let's Resin UV light, and they're not paying me to advertise this, I just think it's really cool, is it comes apart and it's actually 2 lights. It has 2 plug-ins. It can go up to 5 minutes, and a lot of those smaller lights, they only do for 60, 90 seconds, and you have to keep on hitting, you know, the button again. So that's really cool. So you can set it for 2, 3, or 5 minutes, and you're actually getting 2 lights in one. But when you are using it like this, it exposes it from the bottom and the top, and it has this really cool acrylic tray, which I have plastic over on purpose to protect it. And it just slides in and out, and you can move, you know, move your project in and out. So it's really nice. I really like this UV light. I would recommend it. But anyway, I wanted to show you that quick. And then also in this, in here, so that you didn't see the glass, and it looks like I need to do a couple more spots, I use the pink or the red UV resin. Now, of course, and this is already comes colored, and it comes in a package of about a dozen, and it's all different colors. It's really cool. You've seen me use that in other projects, but of course, if you don't have that, you can use plain UV resin and just put a little red mica powder and put it down in there so that the glass isn't exposed. It makes the flower look fuller. So anyway, that's that. And then, so I just wanted to show you, so I did make roses years ago. One of my first projects with tumbled glass, the faux sea glass. So these were my first 2 attempts at roses. They didn't turn out great, but they're kind of cute. And this was all with the hot glue gun. It was held up with the hot glue gun and in the tumbled glass. So here on the back, you can kind of see the hot glue, whereas with the UV resin, you don't see it. The regular resin covers it up. So then, a year or so after that, I did a couple more projects, and I'll bring you in and show you. And then for my poppies window, these are kind of 3-dimensional. They curve up on the sides. I tried using silicone. I tried using Lexil. And I think the silicone you can see stuck to the mat. I didn't realize, I wasn't thinking. And the other one, I think I used the Lexil, and it was, you can still see it all on the back. I didn't like that. So then what I did was I went ahead and I took all the petals and I just put them into the little bowls so that they were arched up a little bit. And I took regular epoxy resin and I poured it into each of the bowls, and then put the little seed beads in the very center, and then just let that cure overnight. And they turned out pretty good, I think. You know, having the rounded edges, and you couldn't see the resin on the back. And I also made those flowers in the same way and just set them on the project after they had cured. And then these were the cornflowers, and these were actually the first ones I used UV resin on. And that was kind of cool. I have a video out on all 3 of those different flowers if you want to look for them. So, like I said, I'll be doing some more experimenting. So anyway, this is with the UV resin, and I am going to be, like I said, experimenting more with some more UV flowers. There's a guy on our Facebook page who has made some real pretty roses, Jack, and what was the other flower he made? I think he called it a buttercup. Was another flower he made, and he uses the hot glue. And I I'm going to try some of those flowers maybe with the UV resin. So we'll see over the next month. So anyway, hope you guys learned something during the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel. If you enjoyed the channel, go ahead and subscribe. We have the Facebook page going. A lot of people posting their beautiful artwork. A very friendly group of people who will answer any questions that you might have. Really great for newbies. I'm still learning stuff on it. Come join us there. And I hope you guys all have a great day. Thanks for watching.